Hi, I'm Bob Weir with another interview of People in the News in Texas. My guest today, two guests today. I have, first of all, is Tak Buchanan, Regional Coordinator for Bridges to Life, a 501c3 faith-based restorative justice program for incarcerated men and women that provides a platform for life-changing transformation. In addition, I have Roger Lindley, producer, cinematographer, and director, who is here because we'll be talking about a movie that he'll be making on this subject. Thank you guys for being here.
Yeah,
My pleasure.
Let's begin with you, Tak. If you would, please tell our viewers about a personal tragedy that occurred in 1998.
Well, in 1998, while I was at work, it was June of '98, there was a young man, he was a transient from Florida. He had just got out of a youth detention center and decided that he was going to hitchhike from coast to coast, and wound up picking my house in Amarillo, Texas. And while I was at work, he broke into my house, and he broke in with the intentions to rob us and didn't know my wife was home. And whenever he saw her, he decided he wanted to rape her, and she fought him, and then he killed her. He picked up my belt off the floor and put it around her neck and choked her to death, and then he raped her and burned my house down.
And subsequently, the killer was arrested.
He was.
And he was tried and convicted. After he was found guilty and sentenced to death, what did you do?
Well, before he went to trial and got sentenced to death, they were housing him at the county jail waiting to go to trial. And I got myself in trouble. I picked up a drug charge on purpose with the intentions of revenge. I got myself thrown into the same county jail that he was in, and my goal was to, you took everything from me, I'm going to take everything from you. And thank God I didn't pull it off, but they found out who I was, and they wouldn't even let me stay in that same facility. So I got out, and I went to court for my drug charge, and I got 4 years probation. And he went to court on the murder charge, and he got the death penalty.
So, tell us, what did this tragedy do to your life?
I couldn't cope. I was completely obsessed with anger, completely obsessed with revenge, and the only way that I thought that I could manage my life was through self-medication. So I started drinking way too much. And when that wasn't enough, I started using drugs, just anything that would numb me and take the pain away.
And when you were arrested in that same county jail, was that on a drug charge?
Yes, it was. And I caught probation on that, and then I got pulled over one day and searched, and I picked up my second drug charge, and that revoked my probation, and they put me in prison.
So after that happened, there was a point where you got involved in an organization that would end up helping you to forgive the murderer of your wife. That was Bridges to Life. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, actually, I didn't find out about Bridges to Life till years after I was out of prison.
Yeah.
But during the time of my incarceration, I gave my life to Christ, and that was the road that I went down that led me to forgiveness. And I came to the conclusion that forgiveness does not mean it's okay what you did. Forgiveness means I'm not going to carry this burden anymore. So through the time of my incarceration, I forgave the man that murdered my wife. I forgave a lot of other things, and I let all that pain go. And then I got out of prison and started rebuilding my life, and went to work for the church, and that's where I met Rogers when I worked for the Bethesda Outreach Center. And then after that, I found out about the Bridges to Life program, which is a faith-based restorative justice program. So I got involved with them. That way I could go back into the prisons and give help to men and women so they could change their lives the same way that I had.
And there came a time that the murderer was in the execution chamber, and you were invited to witness the execution.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us what happened then?
Yes. The state called me one day while I was at work, and they asked me if I wanted to come witness his execution. And I decided to, I really struggled with that for a while, because I thought if I'd truly forgiven, is it all right for me to condone the state killing somebody else? So I spent a lot of time in prayer, a lot of time in counseling, and I decided to go to his execution, but I went with the heart of forgiveness, not a heart of vengeance. And I went to the execution, and I walked in the room, and they opened the curtain, and he was laying there on the gurney with the leather straps, you know, every 8 inches or so, and the IVs in his arm. And he never would look at me. I know he could see me out of the corner of his eye, but he had a microphone, you know, hanging from the ceiling right above his mouth. And he had a warden at his head and a chaplain at his foot. And the warden asked him if he had a final statement. And he said, "Yes, sir, I do." And he prayed. And he admitted what he did. And he told the Lord, "I will take my punishment when I get there." And then he turned his head and he looked me dead in the eye. And he said, "Can you forgive me?" And all I could do was nod my head. I didn't have a microphone, but I nodded my head yes. And after I did, he looked up and said, "I'm ready." And I watched that man go to heaven. And I know in the depths of my heart that I will spend eternity with the man that raped and murdered my wife because of his forgiveness and because of his repentance and my forgiveness.
So he, when you nodded, he acknowledged that you had forgiven him.
Yes, sir.
And that must have taken an awful lot of strength for you to do that.
You know, I'm able to share my testimony in prisons across Texas numerous times a year through the Bridges to Life program. I speak at churches all over, and 2 of the main questions that I get, one of them is, how can you relive this story again and again? Because it was real bad. I mean, it was a lot worse than we just mentioned here. But I say that I can relive that because I don't focus on the pain. The way I see it, that she just showed up and spoke healing to a room full of people, so she didn't die in vain. And another thing that people ask me or tell me is that you're a very strong individual to be able to do this, and I am not strong. I am weak. Whenever I tried to deal with this on my own, I wound up a drug addict, I wound up an alcoholic, and I wound up in prison myself. It's whenever I accepted Christ and gave my life to Him when I was able to forgive. So it's Christ's strength, not mine.
And that's what makes this such an unusual story, because the initial emotional reaction everyone would have is what happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say to someone that you forgave your wife's killer, most people couldn't understand that. But then most people haven't gone through what you got through. So you evidently found a way to get rid of the pain that was destroying you. Mm-hmm. The quest and the rage for revenge that was destroying you. So it took a lot of emotional strength to get there. And that's what makes this so amazing as a story. I want to ask you, Roger, I understand that you're planning to make a movie of this, what happened here. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, in 2010, when Tack and I met, I immediately recognized his story as potential for a film. And through the years of trying to make that happen, it has not really become possible until recently. Revisions of the script, understanding the story more, and even understanding myself better in order to tell the story. But the essence of the film is to capture not only Tack's story and to communicate that, but also to dig deeper into the root of why these stories happen.
Roger, I want to hear more about this. I want our viewers to hear more about this. So we're just going to take a break, and we'll come back for a part 2 of this.